Before Whoopi Goldberg became the wisecracking queen of comedy, the iconic nun in Sister Act, and the Oscar-winning psychic who yelled, "Molly, you in danger, girl," she was just a girl with a brush, and her clients weren't exactly talkative. Why? Because Whoopi's first big job was doing makeup for corpses in a New York funeral home. Yep, before the red carpets, there were cold slabs. Picture this: a young Whoopi, hair as wild as her imagination, marching into work with a giant box of makeup that looked like it had just fallen off a Broadway stage. Lipsticks, powders, foundation shades that no living person had ever dared to try. But her clients weren't going to complain if she used the wrong tone. They were literally the definition of a captive audience. Her boss probably expected a quiet, respectful employee. Instead, he got Whoopi Goldberg, cracking jokes while applying blush to a man who once worked at the post office. She'd tilt her head, squint at the body, and say things like, "Honey, if you didn't want pink lipstick, you should have spoken up earlier." Imagine walking into that funeral home. You'd see Whoopi dancing around the embalming table, narrating the process like it was a stand-up routine. It wasn't glamorous. The perfume of the place was, let's say, mysteriously haunting. But for Whoopi, it was training. Not just for comedy, but for performance itself. She was learning how to tell stories in the weirdest, darkest workplace ever. Every face she painted was another silent audience member, and she treated them like royalty. One family even requested, "Can you make Grandma look like she's ready for bingo night?" Whoopi, with a grin, replied, "You got it, but she might win this round." It was bizarre, it was macabre, and it was the opposite of Hollywood. Yet somehow this job became the foundation for Whoopi's explosive creativity. If you can find humor in a funeral home, you can find humor anywhere. And secretly, Whoopi was rehearsing. While powdering a nose, she'd whisper characters to herself. While adjusting lipstick, she'd try voices. In that cold, quiet room, she was building the voices and quirks that would one day make millions laugh. The funeral home was her first stage, and the spotlight was a single flickering fluorescent bulb. So yes, before Whoopi Goldberg was dazzling the world, she was making sure the dearly departed looked fabulous for their final curtain call. A tragic place turned into a comedy club with one performer and a very still audience. After spending her mornings making corpses look ready for prom night, Whoopi Goldberg realized something. The dead don't clap. No applause, no laughter, not even a polite chuckle. Just silence. And if you're born to make people laugh, silence feels like a punishment. So, Whoopi traded in the embalming room for something just as terrifying: the stage. Imagine her first night in a tiny New York comedy club. The room smelled like stale beer and broken dreams. The spotlight was hotter than the sun, and the audience looked like they were all regretting their life choices. Whoopi walks up, wearing clothes that looked borrowed from 3 different closets, and opens with something like, "So I used to do makeup for dead people," which honestly is great practice. If you mess up, nobody complains. Try giving eyeliner wings to a corpse. You'll either nail it or start a new funeral fashion trend. The crowd blinked. Then one person snorted. Then another. Suddenly the room cracked open with laughter. Whoopi had found her people, the living. Finally, she had an audience that clapped, booed, heckled, and most importantly, laughed until their ribs hurt. Whoopi's style was wild. She wasn't telling neat little jokes about airline peanuts. She was transforming into characters, flipping voices, leaping from a valley girl to an old man to an alien who just discovered New Jersey. Every show was like a cartoon gone rogue. Audiences didn't just watch her. They were kidnapped into her world, forced to follow her logic, whether it made sense or not. Sometimes, though, it didn't go as planned. There were nights she bombed harder than a firework factory. One time, a guy in the front row fell asleep mid-routine. Instead of panicking, Whoopi leaned down, whispered, "Sweet dreams, sugar, but you're missing the best part," and the audience howled. Even her failures became comedy gold. Off stage, Whoopi was hustling. Comedy wasn't paying rent, so she worked odd jobs. Phone operator, bricklayer, you name it. She stacked bricks by day, stacked jokes by night. And every weird gig gave her more material. Whoopi's brain was like a sponge that only absorbed chaos. But through the grind, one thing became clear. She had a spark nobody could ignore. Other comics were funny, sure, but Whoopi was unpredictable. She was a live cartoon, a one-woman circus, an entire Saturday morning lineup crammed into a single person. The funeral home had given her discipline. The odd jobs gave her grit. And the stage? The stage was proving she could turn the mess of life into something magical. Whoopi wasn't just telling jokes, she was telling the truth. Loud, messy, hilarious truth, and people were starting to notice. Her comedy wasn't polished. It was raw, chaotic, and sometimes confusing, but it was alive. And after years of working with the dead, being alive was exactly what she wanted to celebrate. By the time Whoopi Goldberg decided to take her act seriously, the comedy scene was drowning in punchlines about marriage, politics, and microwaves. But Whoopi wasn't interested in telling jokes like everyone else. She wanted to become the joke, not in a sad way, more like in a cartoon way, where she could shape-shift into any character her brain invented. So, she created something legendary, a one-woman show. No backup dancers, no props, no big stage effects. Just Whoopi, a microphone, and a brain that worked like a Saturday morning cartoon marathon. The audience would sit down expecting a few jokes. Then Whoopi would explode into 5 different characters before the first sip of beer. One moment, she was a valley girl putting on lip gloss. The next, she was a junkie on the streets. Then a little kid, then an alien, then a French aristocrat who had somehow discovered disco. She wasn't performing stand-up. She was running an entire sketch comedy empire all by herself. Critics were confused at first. Was this comedy? Was it theater? Was it possession by 50 ghosts? Nobody knew, but everybody laughed. It was new. It was raw. It was Whoopi Goldberg. Her big break came when her show caught the attention of none other than Mike Nichols, the Hollywood director who had made The Graduate. Imagine Nichols sitting in the audience watching Whoopi bounce from character to character like a human trampoline. By the end of the night, he probably thought, "I've seen Dustin Hoffman pretend to be a woman in Tootsie, but this lady is doing 10 people at once. Hire her before Broadway steals her." And Broadway did steal her. Suddenly, Whoopi was standing on the biggest stage in New York, and instead of a handful of beer-soaked strangers, she had critics, celebrities, and theater snobs staring at her. And she crushed it. Her one-woman show became a sensation, turning Whoopi from that funny lady in the club to the unstoppable human cartoon who might actually take over the planet. Audiences left the theater buzzing. They weren't just entertained. They felt like they had been teleported into Whoopi's brain, a place where reality was optional and comedy was mandatory. It wasn't just funny, it was electric. But here's the twist. While Whoopi was wowing Broadway, she was still the same Whoopi. She'd walk out of a theater full of fancy critics and go eat fast food like nothing happened. Fame wasn't the goal. The goal was to keep creating, to keep playing. The funeral home taught her how to respect the final act. Comedy taught her how to celebrate every act before it. With Broadway under her belt, Whoopi was officially too big to ignore. Hollywood was watching, and Hollywood doesn't just watch, it calls. And the call was about to change everything. Hollywood has a way of sniffing out talent, and when Whoopi Goldberg's one-woman show blew up on Broadway, Hollywood executives basically tripped over themselves to get her on screen. They were like cartoon vultures circling above, except instead of waiting for someone to die, they were waiting for Whoopi to sign a contract. Her first big splash was The Color Purple, directed by Steven Spielberg. Picture it, Whoopi going from tiny comedy clubs to standing in front of Mr. Jurassic Park himself. Spielberg saw something different in her, something deeper than just laughs. And just like that, Whoopi Goldberg, the ex-funeral makeup artist, was nominated for an Oscar. Boom. From coffins to red carpets in record time. But Hollywood wasn't done with her. The 80s rolled into the 90s, and Whoopi found the role that would make her an immortal pop culture legend. Oda Mae Brown in Ghost. You know, the loud, sassy psychic who suddenly discovers her fake powers are very real when Patrick Swayze comes knocking from the afterlife. The irony was too perfect. Whoopi, the woman who once powdered noses in a funeral home, now playing the medium between the living and the dead? It was like destiny had a wicked sense of humor. On set, she stole every scene. Patrick Swayze could float through walls, Demi Moore could cry while making pottery. But Whoopi? She walked in, yelled, "Molly, you in danger, girl," and the entire movie turned into gold. When Ghost hit theaters, audiences lost their minds. They weren't just laughing at Whoopi, they were quoting her, imitating her, turning her into the heart of the movie. And then came the cherry on top, the Academy Award. Whoopi Goldberg walked up on stage, clutching that shiny golden statue, proving that the girl who once joked to dead bodies about lipstick shades was now Hollywood royalty. Her Oscar speech was pure Whoopi, funny, heartfelt, and raw. She wasn't just thanking people. She was proving that comedy could be just as powerful, just as important as drama. That night, Whoopi didn't just win a trophy. She rewrote the script for what a comedian could be. And yet, even with Hollywood fame, Whoopi stayed Whoopi. She still cracked jokes, still saw the absurd in everything, still treated life like one giant improv show. Fame hadn't polished her. It had just given her a bigger stage. From the funeral home to Broadway to the Oscars, Whoopi's story was becoming a wild cartoon montage of impossible career jumps. And the best part? She was just getting started. Hollywood hadn't seen anything yet. By the 1990s, Whoopi Goldberg wasn't just a star. She was a supernova with sunglasses. Hollywood couldn't get enough of her. And then came the movie that would lock her into pop culture history forever, Sister Act. Imagine Whoopi in a nun's habit, hiding out in a convent after witnessing a crime, teaching a choir of shy nuns how to sing like gospel superstars. The premise already sounded like a cartoon, but Whoopi made it electric. Suddenly choirs were funky, nuns were cool, and the Pope probably considered getting a tambourine. Sister Act was such a hit that it spawned a sequel, and suddenly Whoopi was the world's favorite fake nun. By now, Whoopi had done it all. Broadway, blockbusters, an Oscar, and a habit that made her look like the sassiest penguin in movie history. So, what next? Television. In the 2000s, Whoopi joined The View, a daytime talk show where celebrities and politicians alike had to face Whoopi's sharp wit. She wasn't just cracking jokes anymore. She was asking the questions, stirring the pot, and occasionally roasting anyone brave enough to underestimate her. Watching Whoopi on The View was like watching your funniest aunt host a family dinner. Hilarious, honest, and a little terrifying if you said something dumb. Through all of it, she stayed true to her weird, wonderful beginnings. Whoopi never tried to be perfect or polished. She embraced the mess, the chaos, the nonsense of life, and that's why people loved her. She wasn't some untouchable Hollywood goddess. She was a human cartoon with wisdom tucked inside the punchlines. Her legacy? It's bigger than any Oscar. Whoopi opened doors for women in comedy, for black performers in Hollywood, for anyone who ever felt like an outsider. She proved that you can come from the strangest, darkest jobs, like making corpses look pretty, and turn that into a launching pad for greatness. And even today, Whoopi keeps reminding us of one essential truth. Life is absurd. It's messy, it's ridiculous, it's sometimes tragic, but if you can laugh at it, if you can spin it into a story, then you win. From funeral homes to nuns' choirs, from Broadway lights to morning TV, Whoopi Goldberg's journey is a reminder that the path to success doesn't have to be normal. In fact, being weird might just be the secret weapon. So next time you're stuck in a strange job or life feels like it's playing a cruel joke, remember Whoopi. Somewhere between a lipstick tube and an Oscar statue, she turned nonsense into history, and she made the whole world laugh while doing it.